What if the reason your apartment building isn't leasing up has nothing to do with the price, the location, or the amenities? What if the problem is just that your leasing agents have never actually been taught to sell? There's $30 billion a year in lost rent revenue sitting in empty units across America, and the data says that the number one thing that closes a lease isn't the feature sheet, it isn't the special, it isn't the square footage. It's whether your leasing agent laughed on the phone, not a sales pitch, a laugh. Imagine your agent getting a notification 15 minutes before a tour that tells them the prospect has a dog named Fido, loves natural light, and drives a Subaru. So by the time the person walks in the door, the experience already feels like it was built for them. Targeted advertising, but for the real world, in real time, face to face. And after the tour, AI drafts the follow-up email. It catches the missed specials and tells your agent exactly where they crushed and where they need to do better. So what would your business look like if you closed 30% more leases? Not by dropping the price, but by finally treating your leasing agents like the salespeople they were always meant to be. Welcome to AI for Founders. I'm Ryan Estes. And in this interview, you're going to learn how Nick, founder of Grotto AI, analyzed millions of real leasing calls to discover what actually closes deals, and built a second brain for the field that's cutting new hire ramp time from 90 days to 9. This one's for operators, prop tech founders, and anyone building vertical AI in the legacy industry where humans still close the deal. Now please head over to aiforfounders.co and subscribe to the newsletter. Every week we break down exactly how founders like you can use AI to build faster, sell smarter, and lead better. And if this episode hit different, drop us a 5-star review for the podcast. Your future self, who closes more deals, will thank you. Now listen up, because if you're building a founder brand and your audience is still scattered across social media platforms you don't own, you're building on rented land. And Inbox Alchemy is here to change that. Inbox Alchemy is the #1 distribution motion for founders who are serious about owning their audience for life. Real email subscribers to your ideal customers delivered directly to your list. We're talking 20,000 subscribers in your first 6 months, weekly founder newsletters crafted for you, and partnership opportunities that turn your inbox into a revenue engine. This isn't spray and pray growth. Inbox Alchemy targets your exact ICP, so every subscriber is someone who actually wants what you're building. So go to inboxalchemy.co right now and start owning your audience before someone else does. All right, Nick, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for joining me.
Yeah, thanks so much. Happy to be here.
Cool. I want to kick the conversation off with kind of some current events, because this is kind of like taps right into something that you've been talking about publicly, I think on LinkedIn for some time, which is it's not really about the model, it's about the humans using the model. So kind of an interesting kind of story is OpenAI just launched a $4 billion consulting subsidiary called Deploy.co on the heels of a similar Claude deployment at PwC, Deloitte, and BlackRock. So, ultimately the entire AI industry basically admitted that the moat is no longer the model, it's whether you can get the humans to actually adopt the thing. So this is something you've been talking about for some time. Is that validating? Or maybe we could just kind of get into like, what were some common misconceptions over the last 3 to 6 months that have kind of been proven false?
Yeah, definitely believe that this is the way the world's moving. I think the obvious thing, kind of the admission that you see here is that like the models aren't going to just take care of implementation and really like change management by themselves. And, I have friends that work at some of the foundational companies, and sometimes I hear them saying, hey, are we going to be the last company that ever exists? Because we're just going to be able to do this function. And therefore, all these other companies aren't going to exist. And I think that really doesn't give enough credit to I'll use Grotto as an example just because I know it so deeply. But like when you're building a solution for a specific customer in a specific vertical, there's so much work that goes into not just building a solution, figuring out the problem, and building the solution, but kind of rallying the org that you're selling into around, getting them bought into it, implementing it, doing change management, not just at the executive level where you're selling it, but getting every person who's ever going to touch this tech bought in. And I think that that process requires a huge amount of human labor. That's sort of like the admission that we see from the big companies as they're doing these partnerships that kind of resemble big consulting arrangements. Like they need a ton of people to go and actually like deploy this tech. And yeah, I mean, at Grotto, like the part of the business we spend almost all, let me rephrase that. The part of the business that we're resourcing the most is like that implementation and deployments function.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's almost like everything else, so few people punch it into the end zone. It's like they get it to the 2-yard line and then it just kind of falls apart. And maybe that's where we're at now, is that the last 2 yards is actually the big lift, actually launching, actually deploying the thing, actually using the thing to spec and then tweaking it, because it's not the fun part. That's not the sexy part. It's really cool to sit down with a PRD and vibe code, 80% of it in 20 minutes. And then it's like, boy, now we really got to grind the gears, and it's interesting to see that, the frontier models have kind of caught up to what you've been saying for some time.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, it's classic 80-20, right? Last 20% is 80% of the work. I think, there was a quote. It was an interview with someone, I forget who, but it was like a little interview clip of someone I saw who worked at Decagon, who said something like, when they deliver their product, and I can't speak for Decagon, but this is what I remember seeing, when they deliver their product, they kind of think of it as being like 90% complete, right? And there's there's this last 10%, which is, it's like the customization, right? And this is what has bred new types of orgs that follow the Palantir type model, right? So this is like forward deployed engineers. And I think what companies have realized is that to make this tech really work for companies, you can't just configure everything. You do need to build some level of custom tech for like the last mile delivery. Yeah. And that by doing that, you actually do truly become sticky, right? Because you've built something that's very, very specific for that workflow. Yeah.
That's what I'm most interested in, honestly, right now, because it brings like novel tech solutions to stuff that hasn't been touched before. It's like so many new opportunities open up because you can get micro specific. Before it was like, well, how are we going to use HubSpot? How are we going to use Salesforce? Whereas now it's like, no, that's not you don't need like enterprise solutions necessarily. Rather, you find like a nice TAM and a critical pain point and just deliver like best in the world. So there's all of these new best in the world opportunities that have arose because no one's ever really addressed specific needs like that before.
Yeah. And I think also when you hear customization, like that last mile customization, that I think back to like when I started in tech, like in 2016, and we were building just classic B2B SaaS. And if you were going to tattoo one thing on your forehead in the engineering orgs, it would be like configuration. Sorry, why can I not say this word? Configuration, not customization, right? And that's changed, right? As the cost of engineering and customization has gone down, why not do that customization? And I think, and also, there's this natural question, which I understand why orgs ask it, which is, okay, well, if we're paying these companies to build us these custom solutions, why don't we build it in-house? Why don't we vibe code it? I mean, they're not going to say, why don't we vibe code it? But that's essentially what they're saying. And I think there's this element of, even if a lot of, firms decided that they wanted to, like build a solution in-house, they're underappreciating what like maintaining the tech looks like and the labor and the amount of time that takes. And I think a really good example is, like we could probably vibe code and rebuild 80% of Slack in like a week at our company, right? But like we don't, because we want it to work 100% of the time. We want it to get updated all the time so that it's always working perfectly, right? And like that, I think that level of just like it's taken care of for me is going to be what shifts a lot of the discussions around build versus buy to like buy away from build, even though building is getting a lot easier.
Yeah. I think we've all made that mistake too. I spent 2 days like building a Whisper Flow knockoff, and it was working. I was like, oh, this is really cool. A day later, it didn't really work. I'm like, dude, Whisper Flow is free. So what are we doing?
No, 100%.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really interesting. It's probably a good time to dovetail into Grotto. Give us a kind of overview of what your company does and who they do it for.
Yeah. So Grotto at the highest level is AI sales enablement for leasing. So, we're purpose built for leasing. And what does that look like? It looks like AI sales coaching and guidance that we give leasing agents who are, leasing you your apartment. So the idea is when you go and lease an apartment, you often interface with a leasing agent. I think most people in the industry would say, like, historically, this position has not really been treated as like a sales position as much as it has been like a customer service position. And we'll get back to that in a second and why those are very different. But the market, like the apartment market, is getting softer. There's too much supply, not enough demand. Like, people used to say, oh, apartments will just lease themselves. That is not the case anymore, and they really require selling, right? And so we're coming in to basically up level leasing agents and kind of help them develop their ability to sell these apartments, as opposed to just answer a few questions and hope that they lease themselves.
Cool. Okay, so I got let's say I have a 100-unit place here in Colorado, North Denver, and so I'm assuming I would be a great candidate for Grotto. Basically, what is Grotto going to do for me on a daily basis?
Yeah, so we've got two main products. One for calls, one for tours. And so I'll start with the tours, actually, because when you think about like the leasing funnel, kind of all inbound gets, some people skip a tour, but most people get funneled down to the tour. By the time you're at the tour, you're probably choosing between one or two other properties, and it's really like a head-to-head competition against you and your competitors. And so what Grotto does is we allow leasing agents to record their tours and get immediate feedback on what they crushed and what they need to do better, right? And that's like the crux of the coaching. But around that coaching moment, we do a few things. So like if you own this apartment complex and you have a leasing agent and someone's coming in to, a prospective renter comes in to view that apartment, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to send that leasing agent like a little text or a push notification 15 minutes ahead of time, telling them who it is that's walking in the door. Do they love natural light? Do they have a dog named Fido, right? We give them that information beforehand so they can personalize this tour. And we think about this very much as like targeted advertising for the real world. This is something that like has not really happened before or has existed before. And we're just happy to, I think, bring sort of like the first version of it to a problem that we all face, which is renting a home. It's our largest expense every year. And it's something that should at least at least get the same level of personalization that, targeted ads on Instagram get. So anyway, so we give them the information to personalize the tour. Then they go about the tour, they record it. And after the tour, they get that feedback on what they did well, what they need to do better. And then after that, we help the leasing agents out with a ton of sort of grunt work. So, they have to like input information into the CRM about the prospect. They have to send follow-up messages. We draft those so they're super personalized. If we have the whole transcript, we're able to create a highly personalized follow-up that mentions the dog, mentions some of the things, maybe your daughter's softball game that you mentioned on the tour. And then we do a number of other things. We even like find these kind of missed opportunities where maybe the agent just didn't have their cup of coffee and they forgot to mention a special, right? And if they had mentioned that special, maybe that would have brought this unit in budget. And so we actually find those opportunities for the leasing agents. We say, hey, you forgot to mention the special here, and we draft the follow-up message that'll say, so sorry, forgot to mention that special. Turns out this unit was actually in your budget. How about we sign an application today?
Cool. Nice. Okay. So I'm assuming most of the tours are in person. How are you recording the conversation?
Yeah. So it's just with like a little Bluetooth microphone, sort of influencer style DJI mic that pairs to their phone. And then, we record it on the phone with the Grotto app. Very, very straightforward. They just hit, the side of their phone, like they hold the button that starts the recording, and then they just go about their workflow as they normally do.
Founders, you know better than anyone. The game changed overnight. Every industry runs on AI now. Medicine, law, finance, design, all of it. And while you're busy building the future, there's a whole generation of students about to enter the workforce who have no idea how to compete in it. AInativestudent.com fixes that. It's one-on-one AI coaching built specifically for high school and college students, personalized to their goals, their career path, their actual life. Your kid isn't learning to code, they're learning how to be fluent in the operating system of modern work. And colleges and employers, they're already noticing. Head to AInativestudent.com. It takes a couple minutes to apply for your student and lock in the 30-day money-back guarantee. The window to get ahead is right now. AInativestudent.com, and definitely have them sign up for the AI chat. It's the fastest growing for students in the world. Every week I sit down and ask myself one question. What do founders actually need to know about AI right now? Not the think pieces or the stuff that sounds impressive, the real useful put it to work today stuff. Then I write it up, send it to you in your inbox free. That newsletter is called AI for Founders, and I built it because I was tired of wading through hit pieces and people that are afraid of the future. Each issue I break down the tools worth your time, the strategies that are working, and the ways you can use AI to grow your company without burning out or getting left behind. Thousands of founders read it every week, and I'd love for you to be one of them. Subscribe for free at aiforfounders.co. 3 seconds to sign up, and I promise it's worth it. Cool. Is there a pivot into hardware here somewhere?
It's a good question. For now, no. But I think one of the things we've discovered with this company is that being purpose built for leasing. So I guess I'll say there are some horizontal competitors that build sales coaching for field sales, and just being purpose built for leasing has allowed us to build such specific functionality that's so perfect exactly for this vertical and this industry that we've been lucky, and I think we've earned the right to win RFPs because it's clear that we know what leasing is and we know how to build for it. So on the hardware front, there are, I think, some potential designs and kind of ways of thinking about the functionality that would be even better for leasing, but it hasn't been a priority so far.
Cool. I love this. Amazing. Okay, so I've got my spot, 100 units. I'm doing the tour. So 15 minutes before, I'm getting a little brief about who's coming. And because it's Denver, I already know who it is. It's Nick from New York. He's got a paddleboard, a mountain bike, and a kayak. So as I'm giving the tour, I'll be like, hey, Nick, you can put your paddleboard right under there. We've got a spot in the garage for your kayak, and your Subaru will park right over here. Not that I'm bitter that people are coming to our beautiful state and clogging up our highways with all of their mountain bikes and things. Being a native, I love that. Okay, and then so after the tour completes, I get kind of a dossier that says hey, you actually could offer this, this, and this. This is how, maybe these were some sales signals they were giving. Here's how you can close the deal. It composes an email. You kind of type it up and then send it along.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And I think, just generally, if if we're talking about AI more broadly, this is sort of this pattern and this paradigm that I've seen people talking about, which is using some sort of sensor in the real world, right? In our case, this is a microphone, but using some sort of sensor to capture this proprietary data and then enabling all these workflows from it, right? So even if you discount the coaching part of Grotto, right? Just by putting this sensor into the world, into this workflow that's never existed in before, a microphone in a leasing tour, we're able to capture this really rich 45-minute interaction, probably 100x the amount of information that you historically had on a prospect. And you're able to then, and so that's very much a human plus AI moment, right? Yeah. And then you're able to automate all of these, both human plus AI workflows, as well as fully agentic workflows, finding those missed moments and that sort of thing. And it's just, it's an incredible realization of that type of paradigm where we're just, tapping into totally novel sort of proprietary data, but just by putting a sensor where one wasn't before.
Cool. I love it. I mean, helping leasing agents, again, this is that kind of specificity that I think is amazing. I mean, you're going to see it. I mean, Denver is absolutely exploded with the millennial kennels that they built everywhere, but
I'm going to use that. I have to be careful who I say that to, but that's an incredible. They're all sort of tan and black on the outside. Flat roofs. Yeah.
New York, you got the beautiful architecture, but here they've taken, the last 20 years, the city's probably double, tripled in size. So it's it's all just the automatically rendered Lego design, which is great because ultimately it's just a place that people can crash before they go skiing or whatever.
Yeah.
But obviously New York, like this is huge. There's the density of apartments is amazing, and it's interesting. And I'm kind of curious why you decided to tackle this, which is basically implementing AI tools for leasing agents, as opposed to maybe what people have done in the past, which is create AI tool or tours and calls and chatbots that are more customer facing. Like you chose the
Yeah.
opposite. I wonder why.
Yeah. Really. Yeah. So good question. I can walk you through the story. It's like two main things. I think first of all, we just saw a huge problem in this industry. It's called vacancy loss. It's the money that these firms lose to units sitting empty. It's about $30 billion a year in lost rent revenue. That turns into $500 billion worth of property value that's erased. And so we said, okay, that's a huge problem. Like, let's go fix that. How do you get people into units? You fix leasing, you fix renewals, you fix the experience. We decided to start with leasing. And what was interesting with leasing was you're exactly right. There are all these solutions that are like fully AI, right? And they're fully automated. And there was clear white space around, well, there are still human to human touch points. There are calls, there are tours. Nobody had built stuff to focus on that. And we said, okay, maybe that's interesting. And then our very first customer ever was actually, they were one of the largest apartment owners in the country. They are one of the largest apartment owners in the country. And because of that, we got access to like millions of leasing phone calls. And our team is a bunch of data nerds. I'm like by training a machine learning engineer. My co-founder is a 10x better engineer than I am. We have an incredible set of data scientists, AI engineers, machine learning engineers, all these things. And of course, we just went at it with these recordings, and we said, what does the data say about why top performing leasing agents are better than average performing leasing agents and bottom performing, or kind of what separates like the top performers? And we just did a total bottoms up analysis based off of like millions of leasing call recordings. And the most kind of like predictive tactics or behaviors or traits of these calls that predicted whether the leasing agent convinced someone to come in for a tour, the most predictive thing was whether the leasing agent laughed on the phone with the prospect, more
Wow.
than inviting them for the tour, more than talking about pricing, more than like classic sort of scarcity sales tactics. It was literally, are they laughing on the phone? And then the second most predictive thing was, are they asking genuinely, sort of like genuine open-ended questions where they're curious about the prospect? So what we saw then, it was like more than anything else, it was relationship building and rapport building that that drove conversion. And so so two things came together. Like we saw there was white space in the market for like a human plus AI solution. And then we got all this data, bulletproof data from, millions of calls all across the country, different markets, all this stuff that said, actually, it's the things that only humans can do, right? Build rapport, build relationships that are the most important thing for our customers' bottom line. And so we said, we're going to build there.
Beautiful. I love it. And I'm curious about a couple of things, but I too am a data nerd. Where in the world did you get millions of leasing conversations?
It was just this customer. They're massive. They've got over 70,000 apartments. And turns out when you run that business for years and they stored all the recordings, they just gave them over to us and we analyzed them.
Oh man, that's so fun.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's a real challenge, right? Like, I mean, we're starting with tons of unstructured text data, and we want to sort of like figure out like what are 3 or 4 or 500 different little tactics and behaviors that we can label each one of those recordings with. And so, it's not just text data. We're looking at tone and intonation and prosody and all those things too. And so we kind of came up with like a vector of like 300 to 500 different features for each phone call, and then just built some models that predicted conversion based off of those.
Yeah. What's the salary structure for leasing agents? I would also wager that like those folks that are getting paid on commission are probably going to perform a little bit better.
Yes. But by and large, it's some sort of commission structure. I think different operators do it differently, but yeah, it's some sort of commission structure. But I will say, and this is kind of relevant to my point earlier about the level of salesmanship that occurs on a tour or a call. Like it's not a huge amount of money that's variable, right? And so like there's not this massive incentive to become great at leasing.
Yeah.
And the same way that maybe there is for like enterprise sales, right? Like
Or real estate.
enterprise
Yeah.
or even just real estate. Yeah. But like think about it. Like some of the highest paid people at any enterprise like AI or SaaS company are the salespeople, right? And that's because I think
It's because they have
sort of
drinking and
a
drug habits.
it's a reflection of kind of, I think, just the cream rising to the top, right? Like the best people at selling find the organizations where that skill is rewarded the most. And so in leasing, historically, the variable comp structure hasn't incentivized the best sellers to stay around, but it's still a really important thing. I mean, it's people's largest annual expense. It's their home. It's where they come home. It's where they feed their kids. This thing needs to be sold like an apartment and not I mean, we talked about this, but not like a Chipotle burrito or Burger King, which, by the way, those companies have figured out how to sell better than apartment companies.
Yeah.
Right? They actually coach their employees more than an apartment operator will often coach their employees. And so we wanted to fix that.
Cool. Well, and this probably gives pause to a lot of these, the ownership class, because if they're like having a problem leasing apartments, then it's kind of maybe you look inside a little bit and be like, well, do we have the right talent that are actually doing the leasing? You get Grotto, now you have all this feedback that you can view, that you can review to see who your top performers are, basically what are their attributes, so you can coach in and up the organization, your people, or coach them out if they're terrible, and it might give them pause to say like, hey, maybe we should actually structure this as a commission sales so we can bring in better talent.
Yeah, definitely. I think one of the things that we've seen is, so there's a huge hiring challenge in this industry. Well, first of all, there's a ton of turnover in the position, right? And there's a huge hiring challenge, like a talent shortage. And one of the things that Grotto has allowed, our customers to do is hire for anyone who feels like a natural relationship builder, right? Maybe someone who's worked in retail, or they're a bartender, they've worked in hospitality. And what Grotto does is we get them up to speed really quickly on the leasing skills. We actually have reduced new hire ramp up time from 90 days to 9 days to get to the same level of performance. But what that capability does is it allows our customers to go and hire people who are going to naturally build great relationships and then get them up to speed on the leasing behaviors really quickly.
Cool. Is there an advantage too of like kind of being an internal tool as opposed to an external tool? When I'm building for the general public, like the tone and attitude and like all of these components of the AI chat really become amplified. Like what does it sound like? Does it have an accent? Does it use slang? Whereas if it's an internal tool, it almost can be a little bit more formulaic and just kind of like lay, bullet points and things like that.
That's interesting. Let me think about that. No one's mentioned that before. And I think there's a real point there. Like, absolutely, there is, you don't have to consider those things that you mentioned in terms of like, almost like our customer experience with a consumer, right? Like that's not something that we think about as much. Although I will say, like we sell to an exec at this company, but our end users are many, and they're kind of the boots on the ground leasing agents. And so we have to make an experience that they like, or else they don't take the coaching and they don't perform better. And then we have no impact, and then we have no right to charge, what we charge. And so it's really important to create like an approachable experience for them.
Yeah.
I will say, like, I don't know, if you have like 100 units of effort that you can devote to making like a consumer experience great, like for a kind of a consumer facing AI, maybe we don't do that, but we take those 100 units of effort and devote them towards figuring out how we talk about Grotto to our customers. And again, talk about Grotto to the end users. And I think a huge, really bring this back to some of the stuff we were talking about at the beginning. When we go to our customers, we go on site, and certainly for a pilot, but also for larger rollouts, we'll go on site and lead these implementations. And the first thing we do is we say, like, we're not here to replace your jobs. We are an AI coaching tool designed to supercharge you, designed to get you promoted, designed to make you more money, all sorts of stuff. And like getting that talk track really crisp
Yeah.
and figuring it out and figuring out how it's going to land. That's where all those units of effort that maybe would have been spent on consumers go. We just focus on figuring out how to get buy-in from our end user.
Yeah, I love it. So when
Yeah.
the leasing agents are using Grotto, it does the agent they're talking to, is it called Grotto or did you give it a name or?
So it's a platform. So the platform actually doesn't have, it's not like they're interacting with an AI agent. It's much more, it is more structured, sort of as you alluded to. And the reason why we do that is because when you give a user like a chat bot, or sorry, a chat box, right? Like a text entry box, that you offload the burden of a lot of the work to them. Like you have to, like they have to come up with the right question to ask to get the most value out of the platform. But like we are supposed to be experts at coaching, at sales coaching. We know the right questions to ask, right? And we know the right things to look at. So we actually we have a pretty opinionated platform around how the information is presented to them.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm kind of asking for personal reasons because, the agents that I'm building that are, consumer facing, I mean, I am going into their backstory, like their great grandparents. I'm giving them names. I'm giving them hometowns where they were born.
Yeah, yeah, no, totally. And do you think that people has that sort of improved the experience on the other end? Do you think people open up to these agents more?
I think so. And largely it's because I'm trying to bring agents out of chat experience and bring them into Slack channels and email and really trying to get it to till it's fully autonomous. It's not there yet. You can't make
Yeah,
a fully autonomous agent that lives in email. But as people kind of become more accustomed and accepting of and see the benefits of chatting directly with AI agents, then I think the opportunity to give them shape and personality, so you kind of are bending the uncanny valley a little bit. I think long term it's a good idea. I just don't know if it is now. I mean, it has backfired a couple
yeah,
of times where I was making an agent. Her name was Casey, and she's from Tennessee, and just has a very slight twang. Every once in a while, you might get a y'all in there or whatever. And my friend Marianne, shout out Marianne in New Jersey, she's like, I don't like Southern accent. I was like, really? Like Tennessee
Mhm.
is just the most charming accent. I love it, but there's still probably some Mason Dixon like kind of things happening. So there could be a detriment, where I see the advantages of being very formulaic and pragmatic of here's what we observed from the call. This is it completely concisely and clearly represented with text. I mean, I think there's advantages to that for sure, especially if it
Yeah.
is more of a tactical tool.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's interesting that you bring up that example around accents. I mean, there's a company in our space that builds sort of like the agentic leasing experience. They're called a lease AI. They're pretty big that you might have come across your radar, but they've done some work where they actually deploy. So they have voice agents, and they will deploy different accents to different regions, right? And I think they've seen some performance lift based off of that.
Yeah.
And I think what's interesting is, and this is just my bias and my experience, but when I start feeling the uncanny valley, I'm like, get me out. Like I'd rather
Yeah.
this thing just tell me I'm an AI, and just know, okay, I'm about to enter a hyper efficient conversation, and that's going to be great. That said, I do think like so much of what we think about at Grotto in terms of sales, right, and enabling a better sales experience is like in the leasing process, at least, to get leasing agents to do real sales discovery, right? If you think about an enterprise sales motion, so much of the sale is built in discovery, asking people their questions. What problems are they trying to solve? What's their story? What's going to get them promoted? All sorts of things, right? And to do that, you need to build trust, and you need to get them to open up to you. And we think about that a lot on how do you coach humans to do that. But I think in terms of building an AI agent, it's sort of yeah, what's the end goal? If the end goal is to get the consumer, get the person who's using it to open up and give you a lot of information, I definitely think giving these things a personality, maybe even a personality that adapts a little bit to whoever's on the other end, would
Yeah.
be a really good way of sort of getting that person who is communicating with it to open up. But then I don't know, it gets weird quickly because, and we think about this sometimes, like what happens if you try to build an agent that like empathizes with someone and the person says, man, I was going to need, a unit to be pet friendly, but my dog just died. And the AI agent says, oh, that's such a shame. I remember when my pet died. And then the user's like, wait, what?
Wait, you got pets now? What's going on in there?
Yeah. Yeah. It's also like, no, you don't remember that. Like that never existed. Right.
Yeah.
So it's a really tricky one to balance, but I think that there's a huge amount of utility in figuring out sort of what the right amount of personality is to inject to sort of like, achieve whatever the goal is on the other end.
Yeah, and just to pivot a little bit more broadly for AI and functionality, I'm
Yeah.
really interested in this because it's just like anything to get me away from glowing rectangles, I'm really curious about. Like what you're doing is kind of the first I've heard of people like implementing kind of like second brain in the field, which I think is brilliant. And ultimately, if I'm thinking about accents and I'm thinking about names and I'm thinking about people, I'm also basically looking at the 7 terminals instances on my thing where if I wanted, maybe I spoke in an accent, which means I'm talking to this workflow in this project, or I have a keyword. So now as I'm in the field, I can start triggering workflows and be working on different projects at the same time, as opposed to like, terminal instances or tabs in the browser or these kind of things that we're so used to. Like if they have personality and accents when they're talking back to me, then I can be clear that I'm in the right terminal ultimately, So
Yeah.
we're getting into the kind of this kind of world, but to your point, I think the uncanny valley is impenetrable. The closer you get for that, people will think it's actually real. When they find out it's not, it's equal to how much they will hate it when they realize they were duped, at least right now. So it's like you have to be upfront to say like, hey, this is definitely, obviously, I'm an AI agent. But then like, I'm just the experimentation of just like a little flavor in there. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's just,
Yeah, no, definitely. And I like the point. I haven't heard that yet, but like sort of like, AI second brain for the field. And like that's good. I mean, it's funny, like it probably won't land with all of our customers, but like it's a great description for this audience. I think the thing I love in there too is just this idea of, okay, you're going about your day out in the real world. Like, how can you trigger workflows, right? And is it just like when we hear certain things, can we make certain things happen? And I think that sort of world, like it's exciting to us, and it's especially exciting to us when it's in service of a goal. And for that, it's like, okay, if you're out, if a leasing agent is out in the field and they can trigger some workflows just by going about their day, walking around, they say some things and some workflows are automatically get kicked off, and those workflows are in service of closing leases and generating more revenue. That is like such a win-win, right?
Yeah.
Like that is or maybe not a win-win. It's just a win. But it's when you couple like the workflow triggering with a very specific goal that like it influences someone's P&L, that I think this becomes really powerful.
yeah. I'm curious too about, this is a legacy industry. I've been around for generations. These kind of properties are passed down and the way they do business, so what the temperature is around AI in general. And I put it like this, I'm out here doing content, and I have consultants that are helping me create content, which is my 17 and 18-year-old kids, because they seem to be experts at it. But what I notice is when I when I publish content that slams AI for any reason, because that's fun to do, it gets way more engagement, way more traction. To me, the temperature and opinion on AI right now, people kind of hating it. I'm in the bubble of all bubbles. I mean, I talk to half dozen founders a week, and we're all just like, kids in a candy shop. But general consensus seems like skewing negative sentiment. So when you're introducing these tools, I think it's brilliant that you're like, this isn't taking anybody's job. This is helping what you got. But are you seeing kind of like negative reactions on the front side?
Um, this is a legacy industry, but I think I said this at the beginning. Like I've worked at like vertical SaaS and vertical AI companies across a bunch of different industries, like hiring, insurance, healthcare. like none of these are fast moving. I would say real estate is one of the faster moving ones, which is shocking to a lot of people. But I think the industry and specifically multifamily apartments have been toying around with AI for a while, and so it's not like we're introducing the concept for the first time. They've had chatbots, they've had voice agents for at least like half a decade now. It's what you said though. It's the end user, right? Like, is this going to take my job? Like that is a very real fear, and I think going back to our North Star as a company, like our North Star is to eliminate vacancy loss, which is the same thing as like basically making more money on rent, right? They just like fill units and they're generating more rent revenue. Like our whole value prop to our customers is we are going to help you make more money. Like we sell revenue. That is very different than a lot of AI plays that say we're gonna sell labor reduction or we're gonna sell OpEx reduction, right? And I love selling revenue because it's kind of unbounded, right?
Yeah.
It just keeps you. And whereas there's only so much OpEx or labor reduction that you can really create. And
selling revenue.
I think that story's resonated well.
Yeah. Well, it's the most fun because then you're selling to salespeople and they get it. You see the light bulb go off in their head. They're like, oh, I can 10x my revenue, right? Let's go. The numbers work out themselves. You guys are a young company and growing quickly. I saw that you guys announced a $10 million seed in February, right?
Yes.
And it was led by Iconic, who is notable for leading Anthropic's $30 billion round.
Yeah. And literally just minutes ago, they announced a 65 billion round at like a 900 something billion post. So yeah, different size companies for sure.
Yeah. How'd you get their attention?
Yeah.
What are they seeing in you besides you, which is obviously extraordinary?
I appreciate that. No, I think so. Our relationship with Iconic started at the last company where actually Ben, my co-founder, and I met. We met at a company called Evolution IQ. That was like AI for disability and workers' comp insurance claims. And Iconic had led their Series C, and we got connected with them very naturally when we were going and doing our own thing. And Iconic, as that sort of Anthropic headline might suggest, but Iconic is known for mostly like growth stage investments, and we were we're not like the absolute earliest bet they've ever made, but we're one of them for sure. And it's been an incredible partnership because it's sort of you get all this attention because you're just one of the few like early stage bets that they've made, but they have so much like wisdom to share from like the later stage deals that they do.
It's impressive, man. Congrats. Also, are you fully exited from Evolution IQ?
Like, do I work there anymore? Or
are you completely out?
Oh yeah.
How happy are you to be out of healthcare?
Well, it was insurance. I liked insurance. Way back, I thought I wanted to be a doctor, and my first job, which is at this company called Pymetrics, which did AI for hiring, was supposed to be a gap year before med school, and I just fell in love with like company building and startup building and AI, data science, and machine learning, and all this stuff. And so I totally pivoted away from healthcare, but I actually wanted to, after a number of years, go back to healthcare. And I did that in around like 2021, 2022, sort of before the modern AI era. But I was building like predictive models and building AI at the point. And one of the reasons I left healthcare, honestly, was I felt like even if I could build the world's most powerful predictive model, that could be used in the clinic, doctors weren't like eager adopters of that technology. And it was demotivating to like kind of pour my heart and soul into building this thing, which I thought was great, but then only to have an end user not be so enthusiastic about it. I will say, I think that like doctors are much more accepting of AI and more excited about it today than they were then. Yeah. But I think insurance was a great space to go into, disability and workers comp, because there were really interesting medical problems to focus on, but your end user was actually excited to use it, which I didn't feel as much with like clinicians directly.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I speak to so many founders working in healthcare and insurance, and I absolutely love it because I mean, the whole system is broken, and there's so
Yes.
much opportunity. But man, the challenges are so great. It really takes, and the missions are so great. So I love to hear about it. But I'm glad it was good for you.
It's pros and cons. I think like you can solve incredible problems at a healthcare company or health tech company, and the mission can be extremely good. And like, look, as a leader, it's like really helpful to have that sort of like the sort of missions that healthcare companies often have. It's helpful to have that sort of mission to rally the troops when times get tough, and and like something like we like I really actively try to avoid is just being like, hey, you should join Grotto because we're like a fast growing AI company. Like there will be a time, as we've just said, where AI is not cool, and there will be a time where like growth isn't just completely up and to the right for a quarter, and like I think one of the things that was nice about healthcare is you had these missions and you would attract people who were committed to something like, bigger than just the company. And so now I think a lot about as a leader, like how do I make sure that I can motivate and rally the team with like a very, sort of different type of mission.
Yeah, I love it, man. Amazing. Let's talk about go to market. How did you get your first customers? Did you have kind of design partners?
Yes. Our first customer, I'm trying to make sure I don't shortchange how difficult this is, and it's not just like we got a customer one day.
Yeah.
We started in like January 2025. We went around, we had some ideas. It was actually like a product focused on like renewals as opposed to leasing at that point, and I remember just like groveling over trying to get some LOIs from a couple of like really small operators who were awesome and enthusiastic and tech forward. But I was like, oh my God, we just need like an LOI to like, go raise money off of or something. And I got connected to an investor who actually just introed me, who they were a prop tech investor, and they introed me to someone who worked in a very, very large operator of multifamily apartments, someone who works in marketing, who led the marketing team at this firm. And she was like, hey, this guy is like pretty innovative. Like you should just talk to him. And he honestly, like, I think we had some good ideas at that point, but he just believed. He was like, I think, you guys, like, let's work together. Let's solve a
Cool.
problem. And for them, it was a call problem. They needed help in their contact center. And so we were building a call solution with them, and they just believed. We worked really hard. Ben and I went on site a lot and just built this thing hand in hand with them. They were the design partner, but I think off of that, yeah, to be honest, like the problem felt just across
Yeah.
the industry, and we went to market with calls, and then I think we just spent more time thinking about the leasing journey like more broadly. I felt like tours were like really kind of like the untapped opportunity, and we started building there, and there was just even more traction there. Yeah.
Amazing. Those folks are easy to find, I suppose. Did you do cold email outbound to find new clients? What's been kind of like the best driving channel?
No, cold outbound is not it. In this industry, in some industries it is. This is, as I'm sure a lot of like verticals are, actually like a much tighter, smaller group of decision makers than you think. This industry is very conference driven, and I've only been in it a year now, but I already have friends that I can say hi to at all these conferences. It's just like it feels. Yeah, I don't want to say it's like a family, but it almost feels like this multifamily family, right? And
Everybody knows everybody.
everybody knows everybody, and people really listen to each other and they respect each other. And so for us, I think the go to market is way less around like cold outbound and much more around making sure we have the right people around our table, like finding industry advisors that can give us a ton of help on that side. If find people in the industry who are excited about what you're doing and will go to bat for you. And then voice of the customer is the single biggest thing that we can do on the go-to-market side. Like I said, like people really pay attention to what others are doing in this market. And if we can either record a testimonial of a customer who works at, a well-known firm talking about Grotto, or, sponsor them to come to a conference with us, or put them on a stage where they, they will be Grotto's best salesperson. As much as I love sales, like another customer, one of our customers will always be able to sell Grotto the best. And it's figuring out how to elevate their voice in the market. That's our single, I think most effective go-to-market motion.
Beautiful. Nick, this has been amazing. Kind of wrapping up here a little bit. I want to make sure that we hit all the beats for Grotto.ai. Yes. Is there anything I should have asked you but didn't, or any features you want to mention?
No, I think we covered most of it.
Yeah, it's been awesome. Of course, we love to give shout outs to charitable organizations, and I know that Robinhood is a favorite of yours. Tell us a little bit about Robinhood New York.
Yeah, totally. So Robinhood's a charity based here in New York. So I'm hitting my 10-year mark in New York this year. That means I'm a New Yorker, an official New Yorker. My wife and I think, feel like we owe a ton to this city. And Robinhood is an incredible organization that funds a bunch of efforts, charitable efforts, New York focus, and specifically they're very deliberate about measuring the impact of their efforts. And so they almost run it like a business. They say, hey, if we're not driving impact and the metrics aren't moving in the way that we want, this isn't a worthwhile initiative. And that resonates a lot with me as someone who runs a business and someone who cares a lot about driving impact for our own customers. And I think that is definitively the right way to approach charity. And they do it right in our backyard. So we are huge supporters of Robinhood.
I love that. And I think what you'll see is more nonprofits adapt this because of what's in the news. You hate to see it when there's these fugazi nonprofits that pop up and just funnel money into their own pocketbooks. But, if you look at Robinhood.org, it says, informed by data, evidence, and the lived experience of New Yorkers, Robinhood funds and advocates for solutions that create permanent pathways out of poverty. Beautiful.
Yeah, data evidence in New York. I mean, that's basically my life. So, really recommend checking out Robinhood if you haven't.
Beautiful. The website is Grotto.ai. What's the best place for people to connect with you online personally?
Yeah, LinkedIn's the best.
Okay, tremendous. We will link both of those in the show notes here. I also want to give a shout out to Kristen with Soulcoms for facilitating this conversation. Nick, it was great to meet you.
Yeah, you too. Really enjoyed it. Thanks so much.
Here's what separates the founders who become icons from the ones who stay invisible: a weekly newsletter. Not because it's trendy, because Inbox is where business actually gets done. It's where investors read your thinking before they take the call. Where future hires decide they want to work for you. Where customers remember why they chose you. Your social posts disappear in a couple hours. Your newsletter compounds for years. Inbox Alchemy builds your entire founder newsletter operation from scratch. The writing, the design, the beautiful branded website, and a growth engine that takes you from 0 to 25,000 subscribers in your first 6 months. They manage everything, so your personal brand is working for you around the clock, building reputation, deepening relationships, and driving real pipeline, all while you run your company. The founders building email audiences right now are playing a game the algorithm can never touch. That's inboxalchemy.co, and go build yours. While you were recording your last episode, Casey Taylor was out there pitching your podcast to brands and securing sponsorship deals. Well, she's not yet, but she could be. Casey is Howdy's AI partnership agent, and she does something pretty wild. She actually secures sponsorships for your show, not a match list that you have to work through yourself, not a template you have to send. She handles the outreach, the follow-up, the whole thing, and brings back partners. You started your podcast because you had something worth saying. Casey makes sure that you get paid for saying it. Go meet Casey at gethowdy.com. That's GETHOWDI.com. 2 minutes to get started, then Casey takes it from there. That's Howdy Partnerships. GetHowdy.com.